Greetings, everyone on YouTube, and welcome to this Age of Mythology Retold content creator interview with me, Kemsit, over here. And we're now joined also by Yeebaagooon. By all means, greet us.
Greetings, mortals.
um, I'm gonna right away ask you the first question. We were actually going on for some moments, but sadly, I had an electricity cut. I have no idea what is going on with the Dutch government or what supplier. Um, But what sparked your interest in creating custom campaigns or scenarios? Was there a particular game or moment that hooked you, or a certain historical figure, perhaps community, that inspired you?
So I've been playing the Age of Games since I was very small, since the late 90s when AoE first came out, and AOM came out 2003, I
Mm-hmm.
believe. So started playing AOM as a natural progression and was really impressed by the sort of quality of the campaigns, the cinematics, and everything else seemed to be on a much higher level. I eventually found my way into the editor there and thought, oh, we can place some things down. Started
Mm-hmm.
experimenting with putting things in there and seeing what I could make. And I'd done that before in AoE, where I sort of made a map where you had to sort of spiral in and get to the middle, but never knew what triggers were until AOM. And
Mm-hmm.
again, wasn't really sure what they were. So I opened up some of the campaign scenario files and saw some of their triggers. So that sort of taught me how they made their cinematics. And then I thought, I might try and have a go at this. So I granted myself some of the invisible god powers like Volcano. I changed some of the dialogues in the campaign cinematics to the 999 theme, which I thought was hilarious at the time because I was very small. Um, and eventually wanted to create a bit more of my stuff and maybe even do something online. And that's what led me to Asian mythology heaven when I ran into a few problems and didn't know what to do. And the rest, as they say, is history.
All right, all right. Truly, you've done a lot of mass work there. Um, I'll move on to the next question too. Where do you find most inspiration from? Perhaps certain games or books, movies, or real life events? Especially since you've like created so many things from RPG to campaigns with Tail Dragon, etc. And even like mod packs, like there's so much that you've created, and I was like, wow, how?
Yeah, I'm quite a creative person, really. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes it's just thinking, is there a concept or way of making a map that I'd like to make my own version of? Is it something that I wonder if it's even possible to do or something that someone else has done? Uh, More recently, an example of that would be the chess map for AOM Retold, board game chess in Retold, just to answer a question, can I actually do this? And can I actually code it sensibly so I'm not tripping over my own code and it doesn't all come crashing down in the last few moments? But luckily that held up quite well. For RPG type maps, it's usually just thinking of a map concept or one idea and then basing the whole map around that idea. It could be a boss, a hero, or maybe even a storyline or a new trigger effect, and just running with it from there. Get some inspiration from other games and other people's stuff as well, of course, but sometimes just think, what can we actually do with this game? Because the editor lets you make so many things. It's a very powerful creative tool.
Yeah, no, I wholeheartedly agree with you. Um, can you tell us about one of your favorite creations as well, if you favor, be it in the Age of Mythology or Retold Extended Edition, or even, in the forums in the heavens? Like, which one would you favor so much? Like, you're proud of, okay, this left definitely a legacy within the hearts of the community. What would you pick?
So I've been doing it for quite a long time, so probably a
Of,
few things. One
yeah.
that comes to mind is codename Ripto in the original Asian mythology game, and that was a RPG based around myself, Asian mythology heaven, and my misadventures there with the power hungry promotion seeking behavior, which eventually came true. So as that was single player, it let me add custom sounds, icons, animations, and really bring the forums to life in the game they were serving. So we had voice
Really?
lines sent in from lots of people. which really helped add a layer of realism. We had fantastic eye candy created by Bask to bring the forums alive, and I think it had about 2,000 triggers at the end, 6 different missions, lots of skill points, and lots of secrets. So really went all out on that one at the time, and it stood the test of time. In the extended edition, really like the multiplayer scenario called Codename Ultra, which was probably my last major in editor project before I went over to RMS coding. That was again 20 different heroes, randomized missions, choose your missions, the first use of floating eye candy, so I could build huge vertical cities and scale them with triggers rather than having to do it painfully and wrongly by eye, and some fantastic boss fight sequences which are quite unique to that. And in Retold, recently released a map called the Paramythia, and that's been in development for quite a long time actually, almost since Retold came out. I wanted to make a hero labyrinth type game, but kept getting stuck and giving up because it just became too complicated, and I was eating my own tail in the code, not knowing where everything was, not standardizing or doing it properly. So I've redone it several times and finally got to a point where I used the class system for heroes and abilities, which makes a lot of sense when you get your head around it, and organize it so any ability can be slotted onto any hero very quickly. And it all just flowed from there. And I thought, let's just put it in an arena so I don't have to worry about the terrain. And that's really helped with the complexity. So got my heroes, got my abilities, got my waves, and it's done and it's out. And maybe the labyrinth will follow.
Yeah, and it definitely worked out. Honestly, like I said, I've also joined you in testing it out and checked it out and played with you, and it was really fun. And I cannot ask more than you to continue on and make more waves. Nah, it was definitely fun. I enjoyed it, and it, like I said, it has received more than 88 downloads so far, and 3 5-star reviews on the mod page within Age of Mythology. So by all means, for those who have listened to this, check it out and try it out yourself, or any of his other creations, if you still can, especially with Heaven's Forums, because if you have a CD or any you know plugins. Um, Moving on to the next question: which campaigns or even mission is your favorite, especially from the classics, from the Titans to the Fall of the Titans? Trident, if you had to choose any. Like many people have different choices. From the previous interview with Couple, we heard Welcome Back or Place in a Dream, to the old friend, no, not old friend, the Dwarven Forge. Like, which one would you pick?
Interesting because the Fall of the Trident, the original Age of Mythology campaign, was quite groundbreaking at the time, had 32 different scenarios and a
Mm-hmm.
wonderful mythical journey that was created. I think
True.
one of my favorites that stands out, can't recall the exact name, but it's the one where Arkantos is sleeping in the desert by the palm tree and Athena comes to visit him in a dream, and then he teams up with Castor and has to break out of Tartarus with the help of a few mythic summons. So that's a really nice concept that got away from the standard supremacy type gameplay.
Mm-hmm. No, I know that mission is called Mission 16. Good advice. I remember that too very much, and it's really fun because you also have the option to start playing as the enemy himself. So it's definitely a very fun one within the Fall of the Trident. And what would you say for the Neo Atlantis? Which mission would you choose there? Because there's like far fewer missions, but still good ones.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So 10 or 12 sort of became the standard after Fall of the Trident. I do really enjoy the finale, and it's great to see the Titans. But a favourite standout for that was Mission 4, Odin's Tower. The main reason for that being I like building up my base in peace and quiet. So thanks to the cliffs and the terrain, I could do that until the forest fire comes. But it was a really nice way of explaining terrain changes and time shifting in one map, and with the use of the vortex power as well, made you think a bit strategically, and just a really nice scenario to play.
Yeah. I wholeheartedly agree with you. Moving on to the next question. What is your most favorite custom campaign scenario? It can be your own or of that someone else. What what would you say?
Yeah, well, blowing my own trumpet a bit, do love Codename Ripto as a very special place in my heart. One of my great works from my teenage years. So it's lovely to revisit that, hear my own voice, see all the old people and reconnect with that part of my life a little bit. It takes me about 3 hours to play the whole thing as well, which is quite impressive. And the music and the cinematic at the end is just wonderful, emotional icing on the cake. It's really quite beautiful. So I do try and play that frequently. In terms of other people, there are of course amazing creations out there. From extended edition, I loved Xenophobia's Ascension RPG because that was groundbreaking in so many ways, so many
Mm-hmm.
amazing new concepts, and it saved your progress. So every time you play, you go to a different level, but it remembers your hero and your stats and your relics. And the boss fights were incredible as well. In Retold, quite like playing Nutted's Spelunky RPG, which is essentially greed RPG, where you have to steal as many relics as possible from other people to get amazing stats, and then you'll probably end up dying or having your relics stolen by someone else.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely very much like great choice as well. And like you've mentioned, getting into that great nostalgia and looking back to your portfolio of creations and just get lost to it and also enjoy these um heavily trigger filled creations, be it from the turd or so in the Xenophobia. It's just really good. Um, Definitely big pet to these guys and shout out to them, as well as you can see over here too. Mythic Strike, Mythic War maps, and all. It's just amazing. They're also great workers. I mean, content creators. Um, Artists overall. Moving on to the next question as well. Let's see what. Hey, here, where did the list go? Okay. Um, what have been the most challenging moments in your journey as a custom campaign or scenario creator, and how did you overcome them?
So it's always the question of things going swimmingly until they're not, or things get stuck. So I think one of the very earliest roadblocks when I was very young and had to seek help from Nutters was I was making quite a big bet for online for my first impression, but it would always go out of sync within about 20 or 30 seconds in the starting cinematic. So you never actually got to play it. And Nutters kindly had a look at it for me and told me I was linking the camera tracks rather than using Fire Event. I was linking them directly. So if there was any discrepancy when someone's machine finished, another trigger would start and then the game would go out of sync, and that's what caused the problem there.
Mm.
So again, infinitely grateful to Nutters for that and actually helping me release something. More recently, it's just understanding some of the new languages. I'm not a professional programmer, so I particularly struggled with the class commands and all the things you can do with classes. So I've had to create a sort of set of notes or other maps. So I will often look at Nutted's maps to figure out or try and figure out how he's done stuff because there's so much to do with classes. So it's the heroes and the abilities and Paramythia. It's the flying physics system that Nutted's created. It's also his UI system, which is an absolute genius of creation. There's so many things under the hood that you don't see until you look at the code and try and figure out how he's done it and how he's adapted to it. So
Mhm.
again, there's a lot of things, and usually they are problems of my own making. So the main fun thought experiment is just to sit down, have a system, and think, how can I do this in a sensible way, and then try and anticipate what I'd like to do with it later. So it's no good building, say, a system that's limited to only 4 abilities. Or what if I want to do 5? Can I make it so it will automatically do that later without too much fuss and without having to rewrite everything?
Yeah, that's true. I wholeheartedly agree. Um, have you collaborated because you just already mentioned with Nutfit as well? Have you collaborated with other creations? If yes, what tips would you give for a successful partnership in the community? If no, would you be up for collaborations?
Yep. So in the old days, I collaborated with Mathiles, or Mathilis as he says in the original game, and he would do the eye candy, I'd do the triggers. So I was good at triggers, he was good at eye candy. I wasn't good at eye candy, so we just played to each other's strengths. We got on quite well. So send the map off to him, he'd make it beautiful. Send it back to me, I'd try and add some functions and triggers. So we collaborated on quite a few things.
Mm,
But interestingly, you can be good at both things and still collaborate. So I know Xenophobia and Nick and Hulk obviously collaborate quite often, and they've done some really incredible scenarios, both on their own or together. And despite them both being quite good at coding and making crazy things, like Nikon's Orfold RPG or his space fighting RPG in the extended edition, uh, which I believe was a collaboration with Xeno as well, but just incredible trigger work.
yeah, I can, I can imagine already. I'm taking your word from it too. Um, what advice would you give, like, for successful partnership? Because, like you said, you've definitely had a lot of collaborations with them as well. Like, what do you, how do you guys work as well? Because you guys can also have disagreements, agreements, and what would you advise for people to,
Yeah,
do?
so reasonably clear expectations of what each person is going to do, and for forgiveness when it doesn't go quite the way you want or you run into the unforeseeable snags.
Mm-hmm.
It's just need to be friends with each other really, so you can work through things, and then
True.
even if the project doesn't work out, that friendship's still intact.
True, true. I wholeheartedly agree with you. Um, you, you definitely sound as a very expert with it as well, by the way. So for everyone who is also new in collaborations, by all means, take this as a definitely a good hint over here. Um, Another side question that's not included in the list. Um, you are still collaborating right now as well, or are you up for it as well?
I'm not collaborating at the moment. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sort of working on my own projects at the moment. That's because I've got to a stage where, with excess coding, I can create quite powerful effects, and I can also make a reasonable job at eye candy. So I've sort of covered my own weak spots there, and it's quite nice to be able to work to my own schedule without having to spend a few days waiting for someone else to do it. Obviously, very valuable if you're time limited and different styles suit different people. But at the moment, I'm sort of managing mostly on my own, but of course, go running, crying to Nutted if there's any bugs or anything about his systems that I don't understand.
Yeah, no, that's understandable. Okay. Imagine if anyone else would like to jump in and ask, like, "Hey, Yeebaagooon, would you be up for like helping me with this campaign or something? Would you be open for that, for example, or would you say no? I'm just at the moment just full."
Yeah, it depends really. So I'm not gonna make a whole scenario for people, but if there is a problem or a rather specific problem, and you're able to give me quite a decent summary of what it is, why it happens, and what you've tried, then it might be something I can look into fixing, especially if it's on the back of any of my how to trigger tutorials on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because this is something that has already been mentioned by many of the creators, be it Darkantos, Mr. Mobile, or these man's gods, the mirrors. Like many people has already got their your name on their tongue. So, but they're also mostly from extended edition. They're I assume different compared to how the Retold editor also works. Like so I'm sure
Yep.
you'll
So
definitely be able there to help. And my other question then leads again, this is a side question. Are you gonna make like maybe more videos on this? Because I can already see, even hear it from previous interviews, some people struggle with certain things. How do you think the community could tackle this?
Yep. So I have made a or remade my Learn to Trigger series for Retold when it first came out, and most of it still holds true, and you'll definitely get the basics with the Retold editor if you look at that series. A few things are out of date there, especially taking screenshots because we didn't have photo mode when that came
Yeah.
out, but the vast majority of things are still there. I was thinking about doing a how to make random maps or how to do an XS thing, but there's quite a lot of coding involved. It can be quite complicated, so you need to understand triggers to definitely an intermediate level and be confident making your own triggered scenario before you even
Mm-hmm.
attempt it. Random maps, and I left my microphone in Antarctica, so you'd just be stuck with this laptop one until that comes back at the end of the year.
Horrible, man. I really hope it's gonna find you back as soon as possible. But hey, you sound very clear and all that, so by all means, it's okay for now. And once again, thanks for tuning in. Um, let's move on to the next question with the within the list by all means now. Um, what advice would you give someone who just starts out in a custom campaign or scenario creation? Because like I said, you definitely have a lot of experience. You even have a whole lots of videos and regarding how things can work. So, what would you advise as an artist?
Yeah, so complete nepotism, and it's look at my How to Trigger Retold series. That's aimed at someone with absolutely no experience, so it's a very good point to get the basics. Otherwise, I'd say uh, do what I did, just play about with triggers, get the hang of what a trigger is, how it actually works, try and do a few basic effects, even if it's just sending a chat, changing a unit name, something really basic, just to prove that it works and you understand it. Then
Mhm.
maybe have a look at some of the other scenarios, have a look at the campaigns in Retold, because they've when they redesigned the campaigns, they changed the names of all their triggers to make it quite easy to understand and follow, rather than the original, which was a bit of a mess. So it's very easy to follow and understand. Try changing a few things, and then come up with an idea, make it a simple idea, make it an achievable one, and go for it.
Yeah, exactly. Truly. Just jump in, lads. Just, cook something up. If it's just very overcooked or just, barely cooked, middle ground, whatever, it's just all good. And definitely also check Yeebaagooon's his YouTube channel and, check his tutorial videos, which are very informative and instructive too. Um, when you design a scenario, right, or a campaign, what comes first for you? Like gameplay wise, perhaps challenges, storytelling, historical accuracy, or fun, and why?
It's always going to be fun first, because that's the point. So
Mm-hmm.
if you're spending quite a lot of time making this stuff, you want people to enjoy it. You want people to
Mm-hmm.
tell you that they're enjoying it, and rather than just see it get tossed aside, because seems like a bit of a waste. So you do want to make something fun, and it
Mm-hmm.
has to be fun for you to make at the same time.
True. Exactly. Finally, so more more mutual agreements over here. Um, what tools, triggers, or editor features do you rely on most, and which ones do you wish to improve? Now, this is a question I really like. There's like a variety of different points of views, like I mentioned, um, but I want to definitely hear it from your side. Like, what do you
And so
think? Hmm? Go ahead.
So Retold's definitely been a step up from the extended
Yes.
edition. It was really nice that the developers did listen to some of the suggestions that were made by scenario designers at the time and did implement them.
Mm-hmm.
So a few things were the ability to change icons, change names of god powers, etc. Um, Something I suggested, and Nutted's been quite forceful with his terrain things and certain updates, and that's led to a lot of powerful triggers and effects. I don't actually use the editor at all these days. I exclusively use a text editor. So the editor is the game's interface of how you make scenarios. I just pretty much do it in a jumped up version of Notepad called Visual Studio Code to make my render maps, and that allows me to access different features that you can't get on triggers, like the
Mm-hmm.
class system I've mentioned before, and for loops, and organization of code, and writing your own functions.
Yeah. No, that's very cool and amazing to hear as well. And it's something I'm not very experienced at, but from the sound of it, you definitely are very in depth and very different compared to the regular, edit and creator and all that. not to speak down upon them more so. Okay. Let me move to the next question as well. Has player feedback ever made you rethink or redesign a scenario, and can you share us an example?
So feedback's always good to have, and that's one of the major downsides of Retold. Actually, you don't get the Steam mod workshop, so people can't comment on these mods. So
True.
if playing something and it works or doesn't work, they can't tell you that it doesn't work, and instead sometimes they just reflexively rate it 1 star, which is a huge shame because you don't know why that's happened. You've got no feedback and you've got no chance to address it. And we've got a Discord for scenario designers at the moment, which Nutted runs. So getting some feedback on there. So when I'm testing stuff, I'll obviously always take things on board for what people have said. So even in Paramythia, the abilities I originally had it, you could only make them to level 4, and they do go up to 5 now. But that was based off the suggestion of one of my playtesters. It'll be quite nice to have a bit of choice and then not use all your powers and specialize. So definitely take things on board when testing if it's a good idea and relatively straightforward to implement. But the level 5 was quite a big rewrite because there's 84 abilities in that map.
Mm-hmm. No, that's very good initiative, honestly. That, and it's also very something that is needed as well, because here in Age of Mythology, you don't really have the way of offering feedback as well. And you guys having a Discord server for creators is something I didn't know, because many of the creators whom I have spoken with sadly said there was no such thing, which is actually quite pity. And that's why Darkantos actually made his Discord server. There are quite a few people in there too. But like I said, there's no feature like that, even if it's in workshop. But for example, in Age of Empires 2, you have the ability to review it, and that leads to the Age of Empires forums itself. And there you can actually leave a review along with a few stars. But here in Age of Mythology, you don't. But here's one thing I do find Age of Mythology Retold has a good side, is whenever you install a mod and you head back to the main menu, it definitely instructs you to restart your game. Something that Age of Empires 2 does not have, and therefore I really urge the developers to take a look at these two features and add them to the both. Um, moving to the next question. How do you approach balancing the difficulty so a custom campaign and a scenario is challenging but still focus on the fun aspect for a wider audience? Like, this is sadly um, a very common fact over here, that it's not always very balanced, and definitely frustrating for the people to try and play. Like, how do you handle it? Do you test it yourself? Because some people have said like, hey, I test my campaigns on my own, or some people just do testers. Like, how do you tackle this?
Yeah, it's a really difficult one to balance it,
Mm-hmm.
because we're just sort of putting values into hit points and attack and hoping it's reasonable. We do test things, and then that gives us a first idea if stuff is horrifically wrong. But we usually adjust balance as the last thing as we go, and it's really difficult when there's so many variables to get that fine balance between not being ridiculously easy that you win it every time and not being impossible to win. And
True.
so it's always ongoing and it's always quite difficult.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree with you. Um, how do you think you've been doing within the Age of Mythology Retold content creator community, and what would you tell your younger self if you had the chance?
Yeah, so it's difficult to know because those forums don't really exist anymore. So AOM Heaven is not really as active as it used to be by
Mm-hmm.
any means. So it's difficult to get that community interaction. The only way you get it is by playing and testing. And you do that with people you trust because you don't want some random person running off with a half finished map and hosting it and dragging your name down. So again, it's a network you build at the moment, which is a difficult one. And with
Yeah.
regards to advice for younger self, and there's certain bugs that would have annoyed me that I'd really have loved to know how to fix at the time, or things that are possible and what that boundary of possibility is, but can't remember them now. So everything's all good and got quite a good career path with AOM. So yeah, just
Mm.
don't lose the motivation and carry on.
Yeah, exactly. Keep that up, honestly. Very great message for young. No, I mean, yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. But yeah, I think still the community is definitely trying to, be, informative towards each other one way or another. Um, how do you see Age of Mythology retold in its future? Because there's a rather conflicted opinion, especially for the competitive side. We know they're not really getting any sponsorship and any contest. Maybe just only uh, between creators and all that. But Microsoft doesn't do that, and not many people are happy, for example, with the recent releases of certain DLCs, be it Japanese, Chinese, and now we also have the Aztecs. Like some people still feel it's gonna be like very horrible. Some people it's just people are very happy about it and want more. What do you think?
Yes. From the supremacy side, I don't get involved, so none of my concern. And
Mm-hmm.
I do wish people would just be more willing to try new scenarios and try different game modes because there's so much creativity to unlock in this game, and we can
True.
inspire some new map makers if people just want to take that leap and try something new. So
True.
we had an amazing scenario active community in the previous games, which we don't seem to have with Retold still, despite all the DLC, which I think is a great shame. And regardless of what people think, there's definitely a lot of effort that's gone into creating these new campaigns. There's definitely a lot more thorough testing, and it's fantastic to see the new engine both work so quickly and so well and have so many bugs ironed out. So it's nice that the developers are actually present and listening. It's just what the community does with that that will determine how successful things are going to be.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree as well. We always and how should I say try to find the middle ground. One can definitely have an opinion and disagree, but disagreeing is easy. But trying to find the middle ground is not the easiest thing to do as well, and that's what I think should be done. And neither try to hate one another simply because one wants something and the other disagrees with that. That's just not going to help. It's just going to create a clash. And instead, we should try to look you know towards each other and help each other in making the game good for all of us because that's what we cherish, especially Age of Mythology. Um, if you could instantly change or add one feature to Age of Mythology Retold scenario editor, what would it be? Because imagine ourselves this up to you. Hey, you're hired. We want you right away to make a quick change into the editor, and you have one chance. And if you're successful, you're hired, and if you ruin it, you're fired.
Again, so it'll just be a very small, simple niche change that only people at the high end of the game would use at all. So the feature to save scenario data and read it, it applies to scenario files, but it doesn't apply to random map files. So you could have scenarios that remember your progress, but you can't have random maps that remember your progress. So I would change that, and hopefully then we'd have Xenophobia coming back and doing Ascension Retold or something similar, or you could just make a huge world of random maps that remember your progress, sort of like Zoo Quest or Motherload that I made in the old edition. So a very small, very niche change, but one that I'd need.
Yeah, of course. I think it's not just only you. I'm certain there's many other people who have that shared opinion as well. Um, are you currently working on any custom campaign or scenario, and are you willing to share some juicy information about it, or would you rather keep it to yourself for now as you keep on cooking?
So Paramecia came out very
Mm.
recently last weekend, and I've even mentioned in it that in this interview that I want to do a labyrinth version. So that's probably going to be the next thing. And who knows, now that I've actually got all the heroes coded and I've got much more coding experience than when I first crashed and burned, who knows, maybe it will actually work this time.
Let us hope so for that. I honestly do. Um, is there something you'd like to say to the community?
Yeah, as I've already said, don't be afraid to try something new. Don't be afraid to experiment. There's no point getting stuck in the corner of just one thing when there's so much creativity you can unlock online with custom games and custom maps. So give them a try and give making them a try.
Yeah, exactly. For not only would you be giving the content creator great recognition, but also elevate their creations and also bring it to the attention of the creators, which might be also, you know, be implemented within the game and to even more innovative ways as well, because that's what we also seen with World's Edge from the Forgotten Empires into Age of Empires 2, or from Dota to many other games which have even defined genres and all that. And I'm certain you yourself could also do that as well, but it just needs of more elevation, etc., and so on. um is there a way people can contact you, like other content creators or those in the community who played your campaign and want to offer your thoughts, opinions with some constructive feedback? Because, like I also said, I personally am trying to find as many people around, especially from the custom campaigns and scenarios that I've played in Age of Mythology or Age of Empires 2, but many seem to have lacked to write down their either an email or a Discord down their description. And like you've also mentioned, right? Some people want to offer you some constructive feedback, but here in Age of Mythology, we don't have that link leading us to the forum where you can rate and leave a review. Like, how should people contact
So I can put the link to Nutted's Discord in this video. So that's quite an easy way because it's got a list of all the other projects people have made, including mine on there and all of Nutted's ones. Otherwise, I do sporadically check the YouTube channel. I'm definitely not all observing on that front, but it's a possible way.
you? Okay. All right. Okay. Sure. And I definitely would appreciate for to for that Discord server. I'll definitely join it myself too. And for those like he has mentioned, check out this YouTube channel Yeebaagooon and the Discord, and then feel free to contact him and offer, of course, some great constructive feedback. Um, if someone considered playing one of your custom campaign or scenario in Age of Mythology Retold, which one should it be? And by all means, not just campaign, any of your creations. Like, what would you say? Okay, this one you should definitely try right away.
For Retold, it's going to be Paramithia because it's the most recent one. Fairly straightforward to get and
Mm-hmm.
hopefully quite a lot of good replayability. Uh, if you're on Extended Edition, you'll find quite a lot to choose from on there. So Project Ultra, as I've mentioned, Zoo Quest has quite a special place in my heart. Crystal Maze for single player. There's loads of stuff.
Yeah, yeah, definitely true. Maze Escape over here like that. Yeah, yeah. No, I wholeheartedly agree with you. Definitely try them out as well. And like you said, Promethea, it seems it's starting to get also a special place in your heart from the sound of it. um, moving to the next question. Roughly how much time does it take for you to create a full scenario or campaign from idea to release?
So it's how long's a piece of string? Ripto took pretty much a year to do. Paramithia took about 3 months to do, but again, I have to make sure this goes with my life and other commitments. My tower defense for Retold, that only took a couple of weeks because I knew exactly what I was doing. So it
Mm-hmm.
very much depends on how complicated the map's going to be.
Mm, true, true. Um, what keeps you motivated to keep creating, especially during long, difficult projects? Because, like you said, sometimes it took you a year, and the other time it took you 4 months. Some people even took 2 years. So, how do you handle it? Because you also have other commitments too. So yeah.
So mainly having great feedback from everyone else about the
Mm-hmm.
work I'm doing motivates me to keep going because as you've got that feedback, people want it, people are impressed, it makes people happy and you have fun playing them yourself. And that's the reason I'm doing this, because don't make any money out of it. It's just a hobby.
Yeah,
It's a creative output. It's
exactly.
fun and it's satisfying for me, but I also need that satisfaction from other people as well to keep me going.
True, exactly. And that recognition. If anyone ever offers you or wishes to do it, I'm certain you're open for it. But until then, by all means, it's just a hobby and all that. Even gaming is so. That should be how it should be, in my opinion, of course. Um, here's another sad question because this also came up to my mind, right? Because like you said, many people who are offering any of those constructive feedback and have inspired you to go forward. Has there been any kind of example you could give us?
Positive feedback. It's just people enjoying the game and seeing people's reactions when they come up to a certain boss for the first time and suffer to its special attacks and all the different sort of strategies that can be used to avoid it, eventually win.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
good to see, especially in Project Ultra, because I thought the story in that was some of my best work. So when the twist sort of happens at the end and you figure out what's happened with these generals you've been fighting and how they're suddenly back from the dead and how everything ties in together,
Yeah.
then that's just a very well written story and quite a nice reveal of doing things.
Correct. Correct. True. Um. Here's another side question. Sorry for these, but they just pop into my mind. Um. Are there any projects that you're actually also willing to convert from the extended edition to the retold? Like, do you have any in your mind that you would like to, okay, this is what I still want to do?
Yeah, so I would like to do sort of the old maps I've mentioned that I made an extended edition. So sort of Motherlode, the mining one, would be quite fun, but that needs the RM remember your position function or remember scenario data, which doesn't happen in random maps and retold at the moment, unless they change that with the Aztecs that I'm not currently aware of. Zoo Quest has quite a special place in my heart. That was quite a fun one to make, but
Mm-hmm.
not many
Yeah.
people played that, maybe because it was towards the end of that game's lifetime. But um, no immediate plans to sort of remake any of the old classics just yet.
Okay.
So I've
Yeah.
already done a few of my favourites, like Pillbox has come over to Retold, Maze Escape has come over, and there's been a few others.
Yeah. No. Okay. That's cool, and definitely I agree with you. Have you ever knowingly bent or ignored history or mythology to make a scenario more fun? And where do you draw the line?
So mythology is all made up by definition, so you're not really bending it, you're just adding to it. But I
Yeah.
did one of my unfinished ones, Caverns of Kronos, for the extended edition, that was sort of merging classic mythology, sort of the Percy Jackson mythology, and figures of pop culture in the real day all into one in that scenario, which um, was entertaining for me. I don't know if it was for everyone else, but it was a sort of fun style at the time to suddenly be facing off against Rick Astley in the depths of Tartarus.
Yeah. True. What was the single hardest thing for you to learn in the scenario editor?
Scenario editor itself,
Mm-hmm.
and I think once you just get that hang of triggers and they just click, the rest of it's all fairly simple. So yes, there are advanced functions like search and quest var, and quest var took a lot of time to get my head around. But I think the main hurdle is just that first one of understanding what a trigger is, how it works, and then
Mm-hmm.
what you can actually do with it and ask what's possible. I want this map. Can I actually make it? Do I know how to make it? That's the first step, and it's probably the most difficult one.
Mm-hmm. True,
Everything
true.
is built on it.
Exactly. Um, have players ever solved or broken one of your scenarios in a way you didn't expect? For example, a player just accidentally drop in some of their units into a well of it and it just disappears, even their main hero, or a player just, destroys a town center, even though that town center is bound to some triggers, and at the end of the mission, it just disappears. Like
Yeah,
anything.
constantly. constantly. And that's why we play tests, because I play it my way, and it works for me and I know what I know. But if someone else thinks, oh, what if I go here or what if I do that, then
Exactly.
does something completely different and unexpected and think, oh, hang on, how on earth has that happened? How on earth do I fix that? So it constantly happens, and constantly finding bugs when I'm testing with people that can be
Yeah.
quite amusing.
And it's always amazing to see those things, honestly. But you're then like, what the frick? What did you do? What did you do to my baby?
Yeah, another thing to add to the list.
Yeah. Nah. Um, what kind of feedback or recognition means the most to you as creator?
So I think being south of Age of Mythology Heaven was wonderful position to be in, and one I had my eye on for quite a long time. So having worked my way completely up, that's a wonderful thing to be able to do. And it would just be really nice if the community came back. But things move on, people move on, and the internet moves on.
True, we all do. We all do exactly. People change as well, of course, but I can still imagine, people from there still contact you, be the good oldies or so, or any friends who you've been working, uh, collaborating with, or still some people who are from the old community who still play with you as well. Because back in the day, many people also used Voobly or Game Ranger or anywhere else to play any kind of campaign or any of those mods as well. Because that's what I remember doing back in those heaven things. So I'm certain some of them are there still who you've fond memories or nostalgia that you can delve in. Like, could you give any kind of example?
Yeah, so still in touch with, as you say, some of the golden oldies on Steam and on Discords, but it's very much the old people who are eternal and have just stayed for such a huge amount of time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. All right. Um, do you keep any sort of, just a fair spoiler again? This question is not originally from mine. It's also from one of the creators from the Age of Empires 2 community. Christopher's big shout out to him once again. Um, do you keep any sort of notepad Excel sheet for fixes or for future updates, perhaps other creations you had in mind?
Yes, so I have a sort of commented out to-do list in some of my modern random maps, and sometimes I annotate it so I can figure out what does what if I go back to it.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I make an Excel sheet of hero stats and try and balance things that way without going too much, just to organize it. And then things take shape in VSC when you've actually coded enough.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah, all right. Okay. Well then, another side question as well, because before my electricity off, you've actually mentioned that you also worked with the original campaigns as well. Like you've also done some of the creations in the retold campaigns. Which ones have you personally self like contributed? What campaign or mission you say I take credit for that?
Well, I won't take credit for whole things because it's a big team effort, and there's a decent team for Retold. It's not just designing, it's also quality assurance and making sure things actually work in different languages, and different tests and people doing silly things with their units that you wouldn't expect. But some of the cinematics and a few of the campaign triggers have been done by me. But again, I'm a small cog in a big machine.
Yeah, exactly. And that machine keeps on going and lights up around us all. And for that, we definitely appreciate you for that. So thank you personally in the name of the community. Um, well, that's basically also all of it. We have reached more than 26 questions, like I said, aside from all those side questions as well. I've no more, so I will definitely ask you yourself. Do you personally have any questions for me personally?
No, just thank you for reaching out and thank you for doing this.
No problem. By all means, it was an honor and a pleasure to do this as well. And hopefully, this will also offer and inspire people to jump into this or even take a look at your creations as well. And perhaps even reach out to you and offer their opinions, thoughts about it as well. And to continue to nourish, even grow this community even more. So, for those drop a like, drop a sub, and of course, check his socials, especially his Discord server and YouTube channel too, and do the same there. And yeah, we'll see each other later.